Christmas turned out to be a nightmare, as usual. The next day I woke up and went to the bathroom while Ted continued to snore. Our quarrel yesterday was even worse than usual. Ted screamed and swore at me in front of our parents. I knew it was bad when I did it. But there are times when you have to take risks for the sake of those you love. I hope Ted wouldn't find out what I did until after Christmas. Or maybe he will forgive me when he understands why I did it. I was wrong. Ted's parents arrived to spend Christmas with us just after lunch. My parents arrived shortly after them. Ted was still sleeping when they arrived. I explained to both sets of parents that Ted was tired after working all day on Christmas Eve. Unfortunately, Ted's father had met him the day before and looked at me strangely but said nothing. He later told me that he saw his son leaving a bar, already drunk, at noon on Christmas Eve. Ted soon woke up, still drunk as shit and angry as hell. To his horror, he walked past our parents with a barely noticeable greeting and headed straight for the coffee can where we kept our savings. When he noticed that most of the money we had both saved was gone, he flew into a rage. "You stupid bitch," he said sarcastically. "Where is my money?" "Ted, I'm sorry," I said. "You knew our parents were coming for Christmas. I needed to buy a turkey and some food for Christmas dinner." "No, you didn't need that," he said. "They could have eaten what was already here, and you didn't spend all that money on food. You're stupid, but not that stupid. Give back the rest." I bought Bobby one toy. "Ted, you wanted your only child to have something for Christmas, didn't you?" "His grandparents will buy him something," he said. "Where is my money?" "Ted, it was our money," I said. "Most of it was money my parents gave me for Christmas. Some of it was also my tips from work." "So what the hell are you trying to say?" he asked. By this time, both of our families, who were trying to stay away, entered the room. "Ted, it was our money, not just yours," I said in a very quiet voice. Before I could react, everything went black for a second. It happened so quickly. Ted's father ran into the room and grabbed him. My father came between Ted and me. Ted pushed his father away like a dog shakes off water. Both of our fathers were regular-sized men. Ted was quite large and very strong. "I'm the man here," he shouted. "That means I get to decide how our money is spent. You have no right to touch our money without my permission. How the hell am I supposed to buy beer now? There's barely enough for a six-pack." Then he turned and left the room. "Ted, damn it, come back here," his father shouted. "You can't treat your wife like that." "You know what, Dad," he said. "I should have known you'd be on her side. Didn't you even try to listen to what she did? You just took her side no matter what. I'm leaving here." With that, Ted grabbed his jacket and left the house. My mom and Ted's mom helped me up. Mom brought ice to put on my face. The swelling was already starting to appear. Ted's mom checked the turkey. She poured it on it and then turned around to us. The expression on her face spoke of her concern. "Don't worry," I said. "It's not really his fault. He worked a lot of extra hours. Often he's just so tired that it makes him irritable." They all looked at me as if I had lost my mind. "You know," I said, "it really shouldn't have been this way. Ted should have been playing professional football now. But we'll get better. We just have to stick together and keep trying." "Listen, honey," said my father-in-law, "I know you love my son. God knows why. I can't understand. But you don't have to make excuses for him. And you don't have to put up with his crap either. If he ever hurts you again, call the police and come to us. But in reality, this football thing was just a dream you had back in school. Ted was a great player on the school team, but he was barely average at the university level, so he never had a chance to make it to the pros. He got a partial scholarship to college. Honey, do you remember how his expenses were paid?" I nodded. I remembered it very well. "I remember," he continued, "you gave up your chance to go to college and took a job as a waitress to support him. Most guys would have fallen apart either on the football field or in the classroom. But Ted failed almost all of his classes and still got kicked off the team. Ted never, he's been trying to work on something in his life. He still has that high school mentality. He still thinks that because he's a big, handsome guy, life owes him something. He shook his head again and looked at me. I'm his father. I've known this guy since he was born. You deserve better. My grandson deserves better. Just give him some time, I said. He will surprise us all. That's what I'm afraid of, he said. I persuaded my dads to sit down and watch TV. They watched as my son played on the floor with his new car. Bobby, what car is this? Asked my father. Mustang, Bobby said excitedly. Vroom. You mean Mustang, Ted's father said. That's what I said, Papa, Bobby said. Mustang. Ted's father approached me again. Bonnie, what else did he get for Christmas? He won't let go of that car. Doesn't he like his other things? I looked down and tears ran down my cheeks. I put down the knife I was using to peel the potatoes and turned away. Ted's mom came over and hugged me. Steve, she was fine. Why do you always have to make a big deal? Damn, Cindy, he said. I just asked her a question. He's my damn grandson. I should be trying to find out about him. I care too. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Bonnie. I didn't mean anything by it. Bowden came out of the kitchen, and as he walked through the living room, I saw him gesture to my father. A few minutes later I heard, "We'll be back," followed by the sound of the front door closing. Ted left the house and got into his 20-year-old Honda. He was driving down the street and turned left when he reached the corner. He drove 1 block and turned left again. He parked in the shopping center parking lot around the corner from his house and walked halfway down the street. He quickly ran through the courtyard of an empty house in the center of the block. He jumped over the fence in the backyard of this house into the yard of the house behind it. He pulled out his cheap cell phone and dialed a number. The phone rang 3 times before it was answered. "Where the hell are you?" asked a female voice on the other end of the line. "I'm in your backyard, baby," he said. "Open the door and let me in." Ted waited nervously on the back porch. He had to be very careful because his parents were at his house, and you never know what the old people will do. The house he visited was directly across the street from his own. After a few moments that seemed like hours, the door opened and Ted rushed inside. "Damn, it's cold out there," he said. "But it's warm here, baby," the woman said. Ted had known Francine for what seemed like most of his life. As children, he and Bonnie were inseparable. If you've seen one of them, you've seen the other. She even accompanied some of Ted and Bonnie's dates, but Ted never paid her any attention. She wasn't nearly as attractive as Bonnie. Years later, after Ted and Bonnie got married and settled down, Ted and Francine began to notice each other. It was awkward because Francine was still his wife's best friend. After Francine's divorce, her second, the attraction between Ted and Francine became intense, but Bonnie knew nothing about it. Francine was about 5 feet 2 inches tall. She was a little overweight and gaining weight. Her hair was cut in a pageboy style. She was wearing a long dress. In one hand, she held a gift box. "I gave you 2 gifts," she said. "Which one do you want to open first?" "I only see 1 box," Ted exclaimed. Francine unbuttoned her robe and dropped it to the floor. Underneath the robe, she was naked, except for her bow. "Here's the second box," she said. "I know what's in it," he said. "This is something I can eat. What's in the second one?" Francine handed Ted the box, and he tore off the wrapper and opened the box. Inside was a bottle of Jack Daniel's gift. "Oh, something I can drink," he said. "They go together beautifully." He opened the whiskey and took a sip straight from the bottle. With his other hand, he roughly grabbed Francine and pulled her towards him. He pushed her back onto the sofa. "Baby, this is exactly what I need," he said. "You wouldn't believe how much nonsense I had to put up with this morning. Your fucking friend stepped outside her house. I had to remind her of this." "What do you mean, Ted?" Francine asked. I didn't hurt her, he said, but I had to spank her a little. Francine tried her best to keep her face neutral. She was both horrified that he hit a woman and excited at the same time. She also thought Bonnie deserved it. Francine has been jealous of Bonnie since her school days, not because Bonnie had ever done anything bad to her, but because of the way Bonnie was. First of all, Bonnie was beautiful. Not just your average cheerleader beauty. Bonnie was damn beautiful. Francine would go out with her hair and makeup done and spend a ton of her parents' money on clothes for the party. Bonnie would show up without makeup, in jeans and an old t-shirt, with her hair in a ponytail, and guys would immediately crowd around Bonnie as soon as she appeared. This shouldn't have happened. Men in college weren't supposed to act like that. Francine did everything she could to get the boys' attention. She was the type of woman who automatically assumed that if you dated her, you would get sex. Bonnie, on the other hand, was still a virgin even at 22. She waited to marry Ted until he graduated from college and became a professional football player. Bonnie hasn't dated anyone other than Ted. When other guys asked her out on a date, or even just to dance, she would smile and politely decline, saying no. Bonnie never went to a party without Ted. Ted, on the other hand, went to every party he could find. When people asked him about what happened at parties and how he could do this to a cute girl like Bonnie, he would just laugh and tell them that one of them needed to know what to do on their wedding night. After Bonnie and Ted's wedding, she became pregnant 4 months after their wedding day. She went from virgin to mom in just a year. Within 6 months of the wedding, Ted began cheating on her. After living in a couple of cheap apartments, they received help from both families and made a down payment on a house. It was pure coincidence that Francine and her then-husband lived right across the street. 2 days after Francine's husband left her, Ted moved in with her. Francine wasn't working. She didn't need to. She had money from a divorce. She was always looking for husband number 3, but he had to be richer than husband number 2. Ted was purely for Francine's pleasure. She enjoyed him because of his size and strength, as well as his explosive temper. She enjoyed playing with someone who enjoyed beating people up as much as talking to them. It was amazing to her to think that this giant of a man could be controlled simply by offering him something that cost her nothing and that she loved as much as he did. The last and most satisfying thing about sex with Ted for Francine was that she was taking something away from Bonnie. In her mind, this was revenge for all the men who didn't even give her a chance because they were crazy about Bonnie's beautiful face. A few minutes later, Ted roughly placed the bottle on the table next to Francine's couch. He stood up and pulled down his pants. Then they had dirty sex. Ted loved rough, dirty sex just as much as Francine. They both loved to try different ways of having sex and different places, not only in her house, but also in the surrounding area. One of her favorite places for sex almost cost them several times. Francine loved it when Ted had her at the park. They did this several times in places ranging from park benches to a fountain in the center of the park. They even had sex on the slide in the children's area. The second time they tried to do this at the fountain, they were interrupted by the sound of car doors closing. When they looked up, they saw a couple of police officers with flashlights walking around the park, looking for something. They quickly grabbed their clothes and climbed into Ted's car. By the time the officers reached the parking lot, they were inside the car. They hid in the car while the police combed the bushes and everything around them. Luckily, they never looked into any of the cars in the parking lot. In any way, it was full of couples hugging each other. Ted and Francine would harmonize perfectly. About heard someone knocking on her door. They both stopped. Ted was foolishly about to shout something. Francine stopped him with a hand over his mouth. She carefully pulled away from him and went to the window. "Oh crap," she said. "Is it your wife?" "Damn it, what does she want?" Ted asked angrily. "This bitch doesn't want me to have fun." "SHH," said Francine. "She'll hear you." Francine put on her robe. Although she was barely 30, her lifestyle and time began to take their toll on her. Her ass was a little wider than she wanted, and there was a stripe of fat around her waist. She walked to the door and opened it. She smiled brightly as she looked at Bonnie. "Hi, Bonnie. Merry Christmas," she said cheerfully. Bonnie wrinkled her nose and lips as the smell of sex wafted from the house. "Francine, my God," she said. "Are you self-satisfied again? I can't believe you're doing this so early in Christmas. We need to find you another husband." "Not everyone is as lucky as you, dear," Francine said, trying her best to hide her grin. "Well, I didn't want my best friend to be alone for Christmas," Bonnie said. "So I came to invite you to have dinner with us." "Oh, that sounds divine. Honey," Francine said, "go home. I'll take a shower and run straight away, okay?" Bonnie nodded and was about to say something when Francine slammed the door. When Francine returned to her living room, she hated Bonnie even more. There is only a week left until the start of the new year. She wanted to ruin Bonnie's life even more. It struck her like lightning. Along the way, she came up with a plan that would solve 3 cases at once. It might be a little difficult to pull off, but she was confident she could do it. It would humiliate Bonnie and stop her from acting like her shit doesn't stink. It would also ruin her marriage, and as an added benefit, if it worked out, Francine would have much more access to Ted. Well, at least until she gets tired of him or she finds another suitable husband. Francine knew that Ted was simply not husband material. Ted would never be more than just sex to her. With age, he lost even this talent. She couldn't imagine actually going out in public with him. She also couldn't imagine herself trying to form any meaningful relationship with him. He was dumb and had all the class of a smeared turd. She will simply enjoy what he has to offer until she no longer wants it. "She left?" Ted asked as soon as she returned to the room. He was still naked and peeking out from behind the closet door. "Yes, she's gone," Francine said. "We'll have to finish later, lover, but I have a question for you. How do you feel about getting rid of Bonnie for good and maybe making some money doing it too? Plus, you could do it without being blamed for it." "Who will I have to kill?" he asked excitedly. "We'll talk about this later, baby," she said. "I'm going to dinner at your house now." "Are you just going to leave me here?" He was perplexed. "No, Ted," she said. "Will you go home while I shower? That way it won't look suspicious. If we get there around the same time, even Bonnie might think about it." "Hell no," Ted said. "I'm not going back there and having her and my parents and her parents all attack me because I slapped her. She deserved it. Fuck them all." "Well, you'll have to go to a bar or a movie or something," she said. "Try to be back here by 8. I'm not done with you yet, and we need to talk about my plan." "I don't have money to go to the bar," Ted complained. Francine crossed the room and pulled out several bills from her wallet. "Here," she said. "Just make sure you make it worth it when you get back." Bonnie. Except for the fact that Ted didn't come home, or perhaps despite it, Christmas dinner turned out great. With the help of my mom and mother-in-law, the turkey and dinner turned out great. The dads returned an hour after they left. They brought sack after sack into the house. "Santa told me to tell you he's sorry he's late, Bobby," my dad said. "But here are the rest of your gifts." Bobby looked at them as if they were crazy. Then they began to pull out all sorts of toys and games from the bags. He didn't know what to do. He just stood there, looking at all the toys in a daze. No one had ever done this to him before. When the dads finished, they took an envelope from the last bag. Ted's father gave it to me. "Oh, thanks, Dad," I said. "Should I open it for him?" Honey, this one's for you," he said. It had been so many years since anyone had done anything for me at Christmas or any other occasion that I didn't know what to say. "Thank you, Dads," I said. "Open it," he said. I opened it, and inside were several gift certificates. One was to a spa, another to a beauty salon, and a couple of others to clothing stores. The last thing in the envelope was 5 brand new $100 bills. "Do you know how many of our bills I can pay with this?" I asked. Father-in-law shook his head. None, he said. No bills. Bonnie, the money is your emergency fund, just in case you ever need something urgently or for a special occasion or problem. Don't tell Ted you have it. Gift certificates valid only in stores and businesses serving food, especially women. They cannot be exchanged for cash and can only be used by the person in whose name they are issued. They are useless to Ted. He cannot use them and cannot sell them. He also can't exchange it for cash to buy alcohol or anything. I hugged both dads and told them how much I loved them. After dinner, Ted's parents took Bobby to spend a few days with him. I was glad because it gave Ted time to cool down. When Francine and I spoke after they left, she reminded me of something I had forgotten. Our 10th anniversary from high school was just a few days away. The high school reunion was supposed to take place on New Year's Eve at a high school in the city center. You just have to go, Francine said. It'll be great to see all those guys we haven't seen in the last 10 years and find out what they've been up to. Damn, Bonnie, school was the best time of our lives. When we were in school, we ruled the world, or at least we're part of it. You've been homecoming queen, head cheerleader, and home queen. You won the Triple Crown our senior year. Don't you want to relive your glory days? Oh, Francine, those days are gone. Real life got in the way of our dreams. I doubt anyone's life turned out the way they thought it would. Why would we get together with a bunch of people we don't really talk to anymore, just so they could laugh at how our lives turned out and say that they are better than us? Because, honey, it's a sign, she said. Your father gave you everything you needed to look beautiful for anything. It's clear that Ted isn't going to take you anywhere where you'll need a beauty salon or spa. And no matter what pretty dresses or shoes you buy, you can wear them more than once, but now you have a reason to buy them. Plus, the two of us, dressed up and looking beautiful. None of these idiots will know what we do or where we live. For one night, we can come up with anything, whatever we want about our lives. We can be whatever we want. I'm sure Ted will want to relive his glory days too. He, peaked during his high school years too. Okay, I'll go if Ted allows it, I told her. She smiled and said that she was sure he would agree. The problem is that Francine simply didn't know how fickle my husband could be at times. When Ted finally returned home that night, it was very late. He looked tired, and there was still alcohol on his breath, but he wasn't drunk. I was waiting for him, and he looked at me with an incomprehensible look. There's probably nothing left to eat here, huh? He asked. Of course, dear, I said. I made sure to leave you a little of everything. I started preparing a plate for him. When I placed the plate and glass of juice in front of him, he looked at my face. Seeing the bruise, he looked down at the floor, but didn't say anything. He started eating and then took a sip of juice. What kind of crap is this? He said. It's apple juice, I said. He's really good. I look like a damn child, he said mockingly. Bring me a beer. We don't have beer, Ted, I said. Sales as soon as I said this, I realized that he would be angry. It never occurred to me that he could react to it this way. Ted exploded. He threw plates of food across the room. You bought all this crap food and didn't buy a single bottle of beer. You spent all my money on a fancy dinner for you and your friends and never thought about your own goddamned husband. He rose to his feet, filled with rage. I stepped away from him. Ted, I'm sorry, I said. We didn't have any money for it. I only bought a small turkey, a can of cranberry sauce, and a car for Bobby. That's about all we had. Where did all this crap come from then? He shouted. Our parents, I said. Our dads went shopping together and bought more food and a few more toys for Bobby. I backed away from him as much as I could. He looked at me gloomily. So they bought all this crap and you didn't tell them to buy beer? He asked. I didn't tell them what to buy, Ted, I replied. They just got up and went shopping. I didn't know what they were going to do until they came back. But they bought a bunch of crap for your baby, didn't they? He laughed. I nodded. Ted, he's your son too, I said. You never let me forget it, he shouted. One damn mistake, and I have to suffer for the rest of my life. I told you they'd buy the kid a lot of crap, didn't I? Yes, Ted, I said. You were right. I'm always right, he said. I shuddered, and he looked at me strangely. What the hell is wrong with you? He asked. You act like you're afraid of me. I'm sorry, Ted, I said. I thought you were going to hit me. He slapped me so hard that I heard a ringing in my ears. You lying bitch, he shouted. I've never hit you in my life. Why are you always against me? I got up and ran to the bedroom, locking the door. The door slammed right in his face. He started knocking on the door. I looked around for something to block the door and a phone. Ted hit the door, and I heard the wood start to crack. Ted, I'm sorry, I shouted through the door. I'm sorry, I shouted again. To hell, he said quietly. I heard him open the door to the street, but it never closed. A few moments later, he returned. I heard the TV in the living room and nothing else. Later, I looked into the living room and saw Ted sunk in his chair in front of the TV, drinking from a huge bottle of alcohol while watching TV. I started trying to clean up the mess he made by throwing food and plates across the room. First, I picked up all the broken plates. We couldn't let our son come home and cut himself on broken glass. Then I started cleaning up the spilled food. Ted looked at me and smiled. It seemed as if he was seeing me for the first time. Bonnie, I'm hungry, he said. Do we have anything to eat? I'll cook it for you now, Ted, I said nervously. You have another bruise on your face, he said. There was something strange in his voice. How did you get it? I fell, I said, looking at the floor. You've always been a little clumsy, he said, but I didn't marry you for your grace. Good night, dear, I said. Would you like to sit with me and watch TV? He asked. Ted, I'd really like to, I said, but I don't have your energy. I'm exhausted, and I have to work tomorrow. Tomorrow night, we'll definitely watch TV together. That's the problem with you, he scoffed. You're getting old very quickly. You never want to have fun. Go to bed already, Grandma. I quickly left and went to bed. As I lay in bed last night, for the first time, I began to think about my marriage, my life, and my future. How did things get so bad? Did Ted really mean what he said? Or was it just the alcohol talking for him? A couple of times during the day, I thought he hated me, or at least that he had lost his temper. I've read that when most people are drunk, it just takes their brakes off. They don't do anything they don't really want to do. Alcohol simply stops them from thinking about the consequences of their actions. Could this mean that Ted doesn't really love me or our son? Does he really feel trapped because of us? There are other things that bothered me. Ted had stopped pestering me for sex for a few weeks now. When we first got married, we did this all the time. He was always on me. Day and night, he expected me to just fall over and take off my clothes. After I got pregnant, I got a break. Ted could barely stand to be in the same room with me while I was pregnant. We had sex a few times after that, but Ted complained that it felt different. He said that I was not so narrow-minded. In fact, I began to suspect then that he was finding it from someone else. I am not stupid. The man does not stop from once a day to once or twice a month, literally overnight. I think, like everything else, I thought it was just a phase he was going through. I was sure that sooner or later love would return him to me. Then the drinking and late returns home began, and now it's gotten worse. Lying there waiting for sleep, my mind drifted. It was the end of one of the most special days of the year, and I allowed myself to reflect on what my life could have been like. I saw myself and my son living in a big, beautiful house. I saw my son spending time with a man who loved spending time with him. I saw them play American football and actually talk to each other. I saw myself leaving the house and calling them to dinner, which I prepared in a beautiful kitchen. I knew by looking at myself that I would never have to choose between buying milk or eggs. We could have it both ways forever. We could eat bacon or sausage and grits and whatever else we wanted whenever we wanted. I couldn't see the man's face because he was holding the sun behind his back, but I knew that he loved me. In some parts of the dream, he wore shiny silver or gray armor and rode a large white horse. Then I realized that I was dreaming. My life has never been, and will probably never be like this. All this brought me back to the present. While Ted snored in our bed, I looked at myself in the mirror. I started wanted to look older than I really was. Ted was right about one thing last night. I haven't really been cheerful lately. Maybe because I'm constantly working 2 jobs, worrying about leaving my son with a neighbor. Maybe because I'm trying to make ends meet to buy food while most of Ted's money goes to alcohol. This was not always the case. When we first started dating, Ted went above and beyond for me. He did everything to impress me. If the other guy even looked at me, Ted would get mad. I fell in love with him, not because he was this big, handsome football player, but because he loved me so desperately. He sat with me and planned our life together. Of course, our lives always revolved around him getting into the NFL. Well, in a way we did that. We went from ruling our school to working and struggling while Ted was in college to ending up with no fun in our lives. This is as close as we'll ever get to the NFL. These days, Ted doesn't even watch football on TV. It's too annoying for him to see guys he played with and against in college now in the pros. I decided then and there that Francine was right. I needed at least one night of fantasy. Just one night to look back and see what other people I went to school with were doing. Regardless of whether Ted went or not, I was going to this reunion. Steve Perkins sat at his desk. It was 8 in the morning, and he was looking at the latest sales results. He heard a beep from the computer indicating mail had arrived. He checked his Microsoft Access account, and his inbox was empty. Then he remembered that he could also receive mail on his personal account. When he checked, he saw 4 new spam messages and one that seemed interesting. It was a reminder of his school's upcoming reunion, which was scheduled to take place in about a week. He has already decided to go. He was looking forward to this. He agreed to give a speech. He seemed to be one of the more successful people in his graduating class. He was chosen as the most likely candidate to succeed, and he did succeed. He was vice president of marketing at Barrier Corp. The company produced many different software products, including the world-famous Barrier Firewall. The company's slogan, "Put a barrier between your computer and hackers," was very famous. As one of 3 vice presidents, all of whom were equal, Steve ranked second in the company behind the CEO president and its mysterious owner, who rarely appeared. Since the owner rarely appeared again, technically Steve was effectively the second in command of the company, or at least competing for second place with the other vice presidents. At work, his word was law. He had a reputation for not suffering fools and was very determined. His moods were fickle, and his few long-term subordinates quickly learned to sense which way the wind was blowing before facing it. It was different at home. Steve's wife controlled everything they did. She cheated on him for years. He caught her twice, only for her to respond by filing for divorce. Both times she simply told him that they live in a community property state. Regardless of who is at fault, she will receive half of their assets, plus child support for their 2 sons, plus alimony since she refused to work. Their 2 boys were like heaven and earth. None of them looked like Steve. He didn't love them, and they both hated him. The worst part was that Jessica no longer looked like the lingerie model she was when they got married. He met her in his last year of college. There, as in high school, Steve played football as a quarterback. He studied marketing because the classes were quite easy. This way, they didn't interfere with football or parties. Steve was also smart. As a quarterback, his job was to make snap decisions and run the team. A stupid person couldn't handle this. So when he broke his leg in 4 places his senior year and saw his NFL hopes dashed, Steve simply switched to a backup plan. With his degree in marketing, he quickly found a job and rose through the ranks of the company. When the opportunity arose at Barrier, he quickly changed jobs and continued his rise. He met Jessica at a party on campus. She was short and plump, like many girls in rap videos. Her piercing blue eyes and long black hair attracted him almost as much as her big round butt and small but firm breasts. It was love at first sight. Now, 7 years later, Steve couldn't stand her gaze. She gained about 50 pounds and her attitude worsened. She'd had so much plastic surgery over the years, trying to stay like she was 22, that Steve couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. Her skin was dark orange from too many visits to the tanning bed. Her breasts were now huge and clearly artificial. Her big round butt, which looked so good in panties and skirts when they met, had changed too. She now looked like a giant bowl of orange curd, full of pitting and cellulite. She was still shaking as she walked, but sometimes she continued to tremble even after she stopped. Steve had to admit that he was glad she started cheating on him. If she didn't have sex with other men, she would probably want to have it with him. The thought of this frightened him. The only reason he hadn't divorced her yet wasn't due to her sons or any emotional baggage. It was purely financial. He was simply trying to figure out a way to get out of the marriage without losing much of his assets. Once he does, she will be history. As Steve read the email, he remembered some of the women he went to school with. Some of them were beautiful, and he really wondered what they would look like in 10 years. He was also dying to reconnect with some of his friends from the team. He looked at the invitation. The letter included the names of several members of the homecoming committee. Steve sent a response to the email. He told the woman he wrote to, Francine Scott, that he would definitely attend the event. Francine remembered. She was pretty, but plump. She had a figure like many cheerleaders. She was always next to another girl, whose name Steve could no longer remember exactly. Bonnie, perhaps. That girl was beautiful. She was as beautiful as a movie star. Steve couldn't get close to her then because she was the girlfriend of one of his protectors. How lucky that guy was. Steve wondered what she looked like 10 years later. She probably became a fat old lady with 5 squealing kids, like everyone else. He was looking forward to the alumni meeting. Francine's plans were going well. She already had 4 guys for Bonnie's coming out. She only needed a couple more to make the evening truly special, but she could get by with 4 if necessary. She had already promised and convinced Ted of the benefits of the plan, and he was on board. She found it hard to believe that a man could care so little about the woman he married. She knew she would have to keep him on a short leash. But for now, she was really looking forward to having Ted under her guidance. The plan was simple. They would go to a homecoming and have a good time. 3 of them will travel together. Ted will spend the next few days convincing Bonnie to go. Once at the meeting, they would spike her drinks, and when she was drunk, Francine would take her to a room where all the men could take turns having sex with Bonnie. Ted, of course, will burst in and make a big scene. This way, he will have a reason to divorce her, and all sympathy will be on his side. He could leave her and move in with Francine. Once the divorce starts, he could pretend that he wants custody of the child since his mother is so easy to get. He didn't really want custody, but if he threatened to take the child away, he was confident he could avoid paying child support. The hardest part was convincing Ted not to try to beat up the guys who had sex with Bonnie. After he saw that he could free himself from the marriage, Ted agreed. Essentially, he saw the deal as trading boring old Bonnie and her baby for Francine. He would have made this deal without hesitation. Francine seemed to understand him much better. They were made for each other. For the rest of the week, Francine continued to work on Bonnie on one side and her plan on the other. She also had to remind Ted that under no circumstances was he to hurt Bonnie again. No one would want to use her, even while on something, if her face was badly beaten. All the bruises would only cause sympathy for her. It would also make it seem like what she did was a desperate attempt to avoid violence. This would paint Ted as the villain again. On Thursday, the day before the party, Francine and Bonnie went shopping. It took them over 3 hours and 4 dress shops, but they finally found the perfect dress for Bonnie. It was a beautiful green dress that brought out her green eyes. Her small but appetizing breasts were on display thanks to the deep neckline and thin straps. The rest of the dress hugged her body as if it had been painted on her. Francine knew that the guys would immediately notice Bonnie in this dress, and her plan would succeed. They also selected shoes and accessories. The next day, on the day of the party, Bonnie will have her hair and makeup done so that she will look beautiful for the party. The mall had a food court area, and Bonnie and Francine stopped there to grab something to eat before heading home. Both were excited and happy about the upcoming meeting and the opportunity to see all of their school children again 10 years later. While they were eating, Bonnie noticed a car pull up, and the driver got out and gave the keys to the valet. The car was a beautiful new Arctic white Mustang. Neither woman saw the driver, but Bonnie did notice the car because she was sure her son would have loved to see it. He called them Matangs. These were his favorite cars even at 4 years old. Alex Anders stepped out of his Arctic white 2012 Mustang 302 Boss and handed the keys to the valet. Normally, he wouldn't give up his keys, but this was an emergency. He needed something to wear to his 10th school reunion tomorrow night. He decided to go at the last minute, and now he had to look for a suit in a hurry. Alex had many costumes, but he needed something different. Most of the places he went, he dressed however he wanted. But this time he needed to keep a low profile. He was hoping to just sneak in and enjoy watching those assholes who treated him like crap at school and see how they turned out. During my school years, everything was different than in real life. Alex was a late bloomer. At school, he was very bookish and very weak. He was also too eager to try and fit in. They called him Alexander the Rubber. He got this nickname because he was a nerd and got on everyone's nerves. He was so bad that he had very few friends. Even the nerds didn't want to talk to him. After high school, he went to college and graduated with a degree in software programming. While in college, he traded his thick glasses for contact lenses, cut his greasy hair short, and started working out at the gym. By his senior year, he began to attract the attention of some girls on campus. 2 years after graduating from college, while working on the Geek Squad at Best Buy, he developed the first version of his firewall software. Now, 4 years later, he owned several different businesses. In almost all businesses, he had a right-hand man who handled the day-to-day running of the company. Once Alex reached a certain level of financial success, saving and increasing money for him lost its meaning. He enjoyed traveling, learning new things, and trying new ideas, so he left the management of his businesses to his employees. It was a spontaneous decision to attend the meeting. In fact, more than a spontaneous decision, it was a whisper and a chance to pay off old debts. There were several ways he could have done this, but he wanted to take it personally. Bonnie. The night of the party, I was still unsure about going. Surprisingly, Ted has been very calm the last few days. He asked me about the meeting a couple of times, and strangely, it seemed like he was really looking forward to it. He didn't even complain about Bobby's new toys more than a couple of times. If I didn't know better, I would have thought he was planning something. Ted always loved to surprise me with little gifts and games. The thought that he could get out of the hole he had been in for the last few years was a good one. But I wasn't naive enough to think that the bad times were over. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I was sure that the alumni meeting had something to do with this. Perhaps Ted was planning something for the high school reunion. I had the idea that maybe he was going to play a prank on one of the kids he used to tease at school. Ted was a great guy back then, but he was quite cruel to some of the less socially adept students. I hoped he grew out of it. But at least his anger wasn't directed at me now, and that was good. Maybe I'm wrong. I hoped I was wrong. I hoped with all my heart that just the fact of us going out and doing something together improved my husband's mood. After all, he was complaining just a few days ago that we never do anything fun. Now we're going to go out and get a chance to compare notes with people we haven't seen in a long time. Perhaps renewing old acquaintances and friendships will bring us new opportunities. At this point, Ted hasn't seen my dress to complain about it or ask where the money came from. I really hoped he would be so busy with himself that he wouldn't notice. Deep down, I really hoped that he would see me in it and that it would reignite his love for me. Maybe even so much so that he'll start trying to have sex with me instead of looking elsewhere. Francine always told me that what was good for the goose was good for the goose. I think she wanted me to start cheating on Ted like he did. I guess she doesn't understand that I'm just not wired that way. My whole life I have slept with only one man. I wouldn't even know how to start something with some stranger. Over the past few days, the bruises on my face had healed to the point where makeup could cover them up. At least now I didn't look like someone had beaten me. Bobby was happier too, and that really made me happy. Ted, although he didn't spend time with our son, at least he didn't yell at him or tease him. He seemed to simply ignore him. The other day, while walking into the kitchen for a beer, Ted even said, "You should buy your kids some juice." It was very similar to parental care, so in my mind things were looking up. However, there were a couple of things that really bothered me. I was interested in what all these higher educated women with whom we studied would be like. Will they be wives and mothers like me? Or will they be independent career women and treat me like some kind of anachronism from a bygone era? At school, I tried to be kind to everyone. I always talked to everyone who talked to me, and even some who didn't. But there were always kids who saw me as an airhead blonde because my hair was blonde and I was a cheerleader. I'm sure some of them will want to show me that they are much more successful than me. I don't really see it that way, although it could be because success for me is having someone who loves me and a good home. I'm almost there. I'm sure deep down Ted loves me. We are struggling to make ends meet with the mortgage, but we have our own little house. Our furniture and things aren't great, but if Ted could have been nicer to Bobby and me, I would be the happiest and most satisfied woman in the world. Maybe if we go to a meeting and he sees that we are not the worst couple among our peers, he will begin to appreciate what he has and treat us better. Steve Perkins was about to leave for the night when his phone rang. "Perkins," he said sharply. He had very little time to waste. He had had a rough day and was looking forward to the reunion. He just wanted to go home and change into the new suit he bought. He repeated his speech in the car. He had just enough strength left to argue with his bitch wife. He was sure that if Jessica knew how much he was looking forward to this meeting, she would want to go too. She wouldn't want to stand next to him and be his wife. No, she would like to go just to ruin his evening and embarrass him. Plus, there was the fact that Steve just hated the hell out of Jessica. She made the worst mistake a woman can make. There is an old saying, "Women marry a man because they think he will change, but men marry a woman because they want them to stay the same." Jessica has changed. She will grow and become fatter. She was no longer the giggling lingerie model he had fallen in love with the ever-cheerful personality he loved. If Jess had only grown up but retained her individuality, Steve would probably still love her today. There would simply be more of her to love. Steve already liked his women to have a little meat in them. Jess was no different. When they met, she had big legs and a big butt. Then they became richer, and she developed a sense of privilege commensurate with her physical size. She began to expect that things would always go the way she expected or otherwise. Every little disagreement between them turned into World War E. E stood for ego. Now it was difficult for Steve to see even the slightest bit of the girl he had fallen in love with. They both cheated. They both knew what the other had done, if not to whom, and they both expected different results. Jessica expected that they would eventually come to an agreement and perhaps, when they were older, stop cheating and rediscover each other. But in her opinion, she was not going to give up. Every time she suspected Steve of cheating, she did it twice. Deep down, she wanted her marriage to be strong, but she wasn't going to fight for it alone. Steve, as in business, thought only about profit. If he could divorce Jessica without losing an arm and a leg, he would do it in an instant. The last thing he did was get DNA tests done on both of their sons. If one or the other wasn't his, and since they both looked completely different, there was a good chance that at least one of them wasn't his. It would only help him. Steve thought that proving this would be a good starting point for his divorce. He could threaten to embarrass her by forcing her to agree to an acceptable divorce settlement. Perhaps he could give her a house and move her into a nice apartment. If he could arrange for no child support or only child support for his child, that would be great. No alimony or minimum alimony, and they would make a deal. Perhaps he would even agree to a lump sum payment and be done with it all. Jessica could bring her fat ass back to work. It was a pipe dream, and he knew it. How the hell would Jessica go back to work? He didn't know of a single place that hired lingerie models weighing more than 100 kilograms. And other than yelling and arguing, Jessica hasn't gained any skills since she resigned. Even thinking about Jessica depressed him even more. "Hello," he said into the phone with even more irritation. "Hi, Steve. This is Francine," said the voice on the phone. "You're still going to the meeting tonight, aren't you?" "Yes," said Steve. "I'm going home now to change clothes." "Will you bring Mrs. Perkins with you this evening?" Francine asked. "No," said Steve. "She has other obligations." "Well, in a way, it might be good for you," Francine said. "Let me get straight to the point. Do you remember Bonnie Williams? Wasn't she a cheerleader? She was very pretty. She had blonde hair and a cute figure. She was a little skinny for me, but very, very pretty, right?" "That's it," Francine said. "She still looks pretty much the same. How about attending a special private party with her?" I don't know," Steve said. "How much will it cost me, and what will happen at this party?" "It won't cost you a penny. It will be completely confidential, and you can do whatever you want," Francine said. "Well, wasn't she with one of my protectors?" Steve asked. "What happened to him?" "Oh, Ted," Francine said. "He'll be there. They're in an open relationship. He's okay with that. The guys will warm her up and later they'll have sex with each other. It looks like these things are foreplay for them. Damn, I wouldn't go behind a teammate's back, but if he doesn't mind, she really was very beautiful. Count me in," Steve said. "Okay, Steve, we'll reserve a seat for you," Francine said, hanging up. Heck, that brought the number of guys up to 10. She found it hard to believe how many guys they knew still remembered Bonnie and wanted her. Even the married ones wanted their chance with Bonnie's little ass. It was simply unfair. Most of the guys she talked to barely remembered Francine, but they all remembered Bonnie. It was simply unfair. This was nonsense. Just because she was a few pounds heavier than Bonnie didn't mean anything. Francine could have sex with Bonnie for a one-off. Even Bonnie's husband enjoyed sex with Francine more than he did with Bonnie. Ted should have been asked. He ended up having sex with both women. In the back of her mind, Francine considered engaging in multi-partner sex with Bonnie on her own. The only difference would be that she would be conscious and willing, while poor Bonnie would be under something and out of her mind. Francine knew she couldn't do it because Ted would be mad at her. He was sure that Francine would be all his by tomorrow, and he wouldn't want her if he thought she was an available girl. She put the idea on the back burner and decided that she would save all the boys' numbers and contact information for when she got tired of Ted, or if Bonnie ever regained her sense of pride and demanded another hit. Francine will just throw her version of a party. Then everyone will know who is really hotter. Francine smiled and then undressed, heading into the shower. Everything was ready. From the moment they sit down at the table, the bartender will serve Bonnie drinks mixed with an interesting cocktail. It was slow acting, so it would take about an hour for it to start working. But once it did, poor little Bonnie was ready to fuck any cylindrical object she could find. Francine needed to hurry and get ready. Bonnie could be back from the hairdresser any minute. Less than half an hour later, she heard the doorbell ring. She threw a robe over her dress and went downstairs to answer. She looked through the peephole and saw Ted standing there, barely able to stand on his feet. She opened the door and immediately smelled alcohol on his breath. "Are you ready?" he asked, looking at her as if he was having trouble concentrating. Francine looked at Ted. Luckily, he was handsome. Perhaps he could still pull it off. His suit looked shabby, and he didn't shave. His shirt was undone a few more buttons than necessary, and his wild forest of chest hair sported a cheap gold chain. Francine smiled at Ted, who had tidied up. Perhaps she would provide some entertainment sooner than anyone expected, because Ted's charm was already beginning to fade. Who knows, maybe she will meet someone at the meeting who she likes better. That would be funny because it would mean that she ruined Ted's marriage for nothing. "Bonnie ready, Ted?" Francine asked. "Fuck that bitch," Ted hissed. "I knew what she was hiding from me. You should see the dress she bought. And she did her hair so beautifully. Where the hell did she get the money for this if she didn't steal it from me? I break my back every day, working until exhaustion, just so this bitch can steal my money and spend it on herself and her child." "Ted, calm down," Francine said. "Honey, you just need to hold back a little bit longer and we'll be together forever. We won't have to meet in secret anymore. And you'll get your revenge, because in about 2 hours, a bunch of guys will have that bitch. You'll get all the revenge you want." "Let that bitch get what she deserves," Ted said. "I'm her husband. Do you know that she never had special sex with me?" "Yes, Ted, you've told me that several times already," Francine said. "I'm thinking that while guys are having sex with her, I should join in and do it myself. It'll teach her a lesson for what she didn't do to her own husband. Hey, maybe I should charge guys for that. To take her, so I can have special sex with her and get my money back," he muttered. "Ted, you can't drink anymore, honey," Francine said. "I need you to sober up a little. I'll make you some coffee when we get to your house. And during the party, you only need to drink coffee or water. We need to be smarter." Ted began to frown. Francine could tell he was angry. "Ted, honey, once you've done your part, you can have sex with me," she said. "And if you come to me, you can share my money with me. I'll give you all the money you need, because people who love each other should share everything." "You're absolutely right," Ted snorted. He pulled out a flask and Francine quickly snatched it. "No more alcohol until completion, dear," she said. "Oh, yeah, I forgot," Ted smiled. Francine took off her robe and picked up her coat. Ted looked at her in confusion. "How did you change clothes so quickly?" he asked. "You were in a robe, I got distracted, and now you're in a completely different outfit." "Damn," Francine thought. "This guy is drunker than I thought." "Magic, Ted," she said. "When we are together, magic happens." "You're absolutely right," said Ted. The high school was brightly lit and decorated. There were banners and garlands throughout the gym, and blown-up photos of students and events that happened during their senior year were hung throughout. There was a table right next to the door where guests checked in and received name tags. They were also supposed to have their photo taken so that their photos could be printed and placed next to an enlarged copy of their yearbook photo so everyone could see how they had changed. Their badges also included their graduation photos. Francine, Bonnie, and Ted checked in and received their badges. As soon as they entered the gym, they sat down at an empty table. A few minutes later, the waiter came and took their drink order. Ted, to Bonnie's surprise, ordered bottled water. She also asked for the same one. If Ted was trying to stop drinking, she wanted to help him or at least support him. Francine nodded to the waiter, and he nodded back. A couple of guys came up and started joking with Ted. He perked up and left with them. They went to make fun of some guys and girls who were less popular in the old days. Francine excused herself and went off to chat with a couple of her old acquaintances. She told Bonnie that she would be back soon. Bonnie didn't want to be alone at the table, so she stood up to follow Ted. Every male eye in the building had been looking at Bonnie from the moment she checked in. Most of them were simply amazed at how beautiful she still was. The married people tried not to look at her. They knew their wives would be hysterical. The bachelors simply stared at her with their mouths open in admiration. However, there was a group of men who looked at her with a smirk because they knew what was going on and were going to take part in it. Ted and his friends walked out into the parking lot. 4 big fat guys were trying to play a prank on one of their former classmates. Byron Manning drove his new Toyota Prius to his high school reunion. Four men had turned the car on its side and were now trying to turn it upside down onto its roof. Someone warned Byron, and he went outside, shouting at them at the top of his voice. Byron became a successful lawyer and threatened to call the police. Bonnie was almost at the scene, hoping to get Ted out of there before things went too far, when it happened. Everyone heard the car before they saw it. She pulled into the parking lot, her driver driving much faster than he should have. He jerked the steering wheel sharply, and the car jerked to the left, doing a half donut, and stopped right at the parking curb. The car, an Arctic white Mustang 302 Boss Lacuna, stalled and the driver got out. The car was heavily modified, including suicide doors. The driver got out and Bonnie thought about her dream. The man was wearing a gray suit made of raw silk. Under the light, and from a distance, it appeared shiny. The large running pony logo on the front grille of the car reminded her even more of her dream. Their eyes met and Bonnie's legs gave way. He casually looked at her and then back at the four big guys. He wasn't as big as them, but he was very muscular. He walked casually late towards them and diverted their attention from Byron. "Looks like not much has changed around here, huh, Byron? Still the same bullies, preying on those smaller or different. Tell me if you need help. Some of us never grew up," he said. "Who the hell are you?" Ted said. Alex simply looked at Ted, smiled, and shook his head. He deliberately ignored Ted. "Hey, we're just having fun," Steve said. "No harm done. So I'm guessing you're going to flip Byron's car back and paint it at your own expense, as well as pay for body repairs and any mechanical damage, correct?" Alex asked. "Maybe we'll give him your car," Steve said. "Steve, you especially should shut up," Alex said. "This is not a school. I can change your life with one snap of my fingers, and you can choose whether I do it before or after I kick you." Steve was stunned. No one had ever spoken to him like that in his entire life. Anyone he couldn't physically dominate, he always either intimidated or used his money against them. This guy was too confident in himself. He seemed to know something about Steve, but Steve had no idea who he was. Even in the jungle, predators know when they can't compete. Steve felt the battle was lost, so he retreated. "You can't talk to Steve like that, asshole," muttered a still drunk Ted. Ted lunged at Alex, who simply moved to the side to avoid the bumbling drunk. Ted crashed into the underside of Byron's car and stained his suit with oil from the pan. "That was cowardly," Ted said, trying to wipe the oil off his jacket. "He just smeared it all over himself." "What, guy? Can't take a hit?" "We don't play football, fool," Alex said. "And you're acting like you've already been hit too many times by something." Alex smiled at Bonnie and turned to Steve. "Steve, you should keep your dog on a leash before it costs you both something you'd rather not lose." "Who are you?" Steve asked calmly. He was sure he knew, but he wanted confirmation. "Let's do it, Steve," Alex said. "The divorce you want may not be your only problem." He turned to go to school. "Bonnie, you're still just as beautiful," he said over his shoulder. "Byron, if you have a cell phone, call yourself a tow truck. If you need a ride later and I'm still here, I'll give you a ride. Have your car towed to the Toyota dealership. Dealers are more expensive, but this is the best place to get your car fixed right. Steve will pay for this, so don't worry." Then Alex left. Ted frantically tried to scrub off the oil and only made the situation worse. Steve was angry too. The other two former football players stood with their mouths open, wondering who Alex was. Bonnie watched as he calmly entered the building. Byron took out his phone. He smiled. Seeing those bullies put in their place was worth the damage to his car. He wanted to laugh at Ted for crashing into a car and ruining his suit, but he didn't want to get his ass kicked. Alex entered the school and was about to walk past the front desk when the woman behind the desk Oakley ruled him. "Hi, how are you?" She was jubilant. "You must register here and get a badge before you go inside." She was happy about the requirement to register because she wanted to know who he was. "But Amy," he said, turning to her and smiling briefly, "what if I don't want to register? What if I don't want anyone to know who I am?" "You know me?" she exclaimed. "So you remember me?" Her face lit up. "Of course, Amy," he said. "How could I forget you? You're still just as hardworking and dedicated as you were in school, and probably underappreciated as well." "I'm really sorry that the rules say you have to register," she said. "Don't worry about it," Alex said. "But can you please not tell anyone who I am? It's a little awkward." "Of course," Amy said, wondering how someone with that appearance could feel awkward. "This will be our secret." "Alex Anders," Alex said, reaching over to the table and taking the badge as Amy's jaw dropped. "Oh my God," she gasped before covering her mouth with her hand. Alex walked away from the table just as Bonnie, Ted, and Steve approached him. "Who the hell is this guy?" Ted asked. "Theodore, if you don't watch your language, I'll call security and ask you to leave the premises," Amy said. "If you want to know who he is, just read his badge like everyone else." "Hey, where's his picture?" Steve asked. "Did you make him take a picture like us?" "I didn't force anyone to take a photo," Amy said. "I just asked. And you, like most, wanted to do it. He didn't want to." "Then how do you know who he is?" Ted asked. "He could be some kind of psycho." "Well, Theodore," Amy said, taking off her glasses and standing up. "He recognized me. You didn't. When he told me who he was, I recognized him too. End of story. This is not school anymore, Theodore. No one is afraid of you. My husband is a policeman. He is waiting for me in the gym to dance with me. Do you want me to call him here?" "We're leaving," Bonnie said. She didn't want any problems. What she really wanted to know was who this guy was. Alex entered the gym and threw his badge into the first trash bin he saw. He walked around the gym, looking for the person who gave him advice, a former classmate who had recently taken a job at one of Alex's smaller companies. He also worked as a bartender on weekends. Alex noticed him behind the bar and approached him. "How are you doing so far?" he asked. "Okay, boss," Leroy Jurgens said. "Francine got Tom to put a cocktail of crap in Bonnie's drinks. I did what you said. Tom is on our side, of course." Alex nodded. He looked across the gym to see Francine return to the table and hand Bonnie another bottle of water. Ted and Francine were drinking mixed drinks. Although Ted was already drunk, Bonnie only drank water for now. Alex was still amazed at how beautiful Bonnie was. He was even more amazed that she married that idiot Ted. Several people approached him as he walked around the gym, trying not to stand out or stay in one place for too long. "Hey, don't you?" they started asking. "No," he replied Al and continued walking. Half an hour after Alex arrived, the lights were dimmed and the DJ began playing decades-old hits. Several couples took to the dance floor. As the light became even dimmer, Alex headed towards the shadows along the edges of the hall. Before he could get there, someone grabbed his arm. "Can I have this dance?" Francine asked. She heard about the incident in the parking lot. Byron told everyone who would listen. Everyone was dying of curiosity to find out who Alex was. Since he didn't take a photo, and there were at least 10 men who didn't show up for the homecoming, he could have been anyone. "Why would I dance with you, Francine?" Alex asked. "Why not?" she asked, spreading her arms as if showing off her body. "Well, if that's all you're offering, you're not my type," Alex said. Francine was shocked. She was sure he would dance with her just to be polite. Her reluctance only made her want to dance with him even more. Francine started to feel really good. "Come on, it's just a dance." "Francine, you treated me like crap for 4 years of your life," Alex said. "Find someone else." "Hey, school's out. We're all adults now," Francine said. "Let's forget about the past." "Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it," said Alex. You especially should remember this considering you took history 3 times. Francine walked away from him and returned to her desk. She grabbed her drink, downed it in one gulp, and grabbed another. You've really pissed off Francine, Amy said. It's not that she doesn't deserve it. Amy, Alex said, do you think your husband would mind if we pissed her off even more? I'm sure not, Amy smiled. Amy and Alex took to the dance floor and danced the next dance. Neither of them were great dancers, but they were having fun, and the people watching were having fun too. Francine was on her 4th drink. She looked at any point blank. Steve and Ted were too cool to dance, so Bonnie sat at the table and watched the other couples. Bonnie noticed that many of the men at the high school reunion were looking at her. She wondered why. Francine told her that some of them were probably among the judges in the election of the king and queen of the meeting. They were probably just evaluating her to decide who to vote for. Bonnie didn't really care about being queen of the meeting, but if she won, she knew who she wanted to be king, and it wasn't Ted. Francine stood up and returned to the bartender for another round of drinks. The bartender told her that most of her guests were already in the room on the 2nd floor that she had reserved. The school building was open, but the celebration was supposed to be limited to the ground floor. A couple of guys Francine paid to prepare the staff room for Francine's private party. The door was locked and one of the men stood guard. For his services, he received the right to participate. The room was dark and warm, with 2 adult films playing on the screens. There was also a plentiful supply of alcohol. Most of the men, with the exception of Steve and Ted, were already there. Ted wouldn't go there until late evenings. As soon as Bonnie walked through the door, the men would attack her. They expected her to be high and ready for anything. In a mostly dark room, it would be impossible to tell who was doing what. As Francine walked back to the table, she could barely put one foot in front of the other. She was very angry with this guy. He was very confident and very damn handsome. From what she had heard about his car, he probably had money or at least a very good job. She really wanted him, right here and now. She looked around the hall in search of him and could not find him. The music suddenly stopped and Francine looked up at the stage. The DJ handed the microphone to Carl Fitzgerald. Carl was one of the organizers of the meeting. He started talking and Francine had a hard time understanding what he was saying. It didn't matter anyway. He said something about a competition or something like that. Then Steve started talking. Steve went on and on about how successful he is and what he does for some company he works for and how much money he makes. If Steve wasn't married and wasn't such an arrogant bastard, Francine could have wooed him herself. Her married status didn't particularly bother her, but she preferred her men to be controlled ones, like Ted. Then she remembered her own little party. Her chance to put Bonnie in her place would begin when Steve finished speaking. After Steve left the stage, he would head upstairs through the back exit. Ted had to move through the crowd, making sure everyone could see him. He and a group of their classmates would then go on a tour of the school, starting from the top floor and moving down. This would give the competition organizers time to count their votes and prepare to announce the winners. Francine was even angrier because she checked and found out that Bonnie was leading the vote for queen. She wanted to see how much they would think of her as a queen when they walked into this hall and found her having sex with many men. Ted will then reprise his Oscar-winning role as the injured party. He will scream and act angry and then leave with Francine. The next day, the lawyer they hired will file Bonnie's paperwork and confuse her even more. A few days later, Ted would run into her at a meeting at the lawyer's office and lay out his terms. Francine will supposedly help them both. On the surface, she will try to help both Bonnie and Ted put this behind them and get back together. Of course, she'll fall in love with Ted in the process because of all the time spent trying to convince him to go back to Bonnie. However, Francine began to have doubts. She looked at Ted seriously and began to think that perhaps he was not what she needed. This new arrogant guy might be more suitable for her. Of course, she still wanted to see Bonnie get hers, But maybe Bonnie could leave her drunken husband. Of course, Ted will be angry. But Francine only had one remark about this. Fuck it, Theta. Damn, she thought, I've already done this. Finally, the crowd breathed a sigh of relief when Steve finished talking about himself and left the stage. Several people in the audience fell asleep. The rest were sleepy. Almost everyone wondered when their football team's quarterback became such a pompous idiot. As Steve stepped off the stage and mingled with the dancing crowd, he nodded to Francine. Francine stood up from the table and had difficulty maintaining her balance. She was sure that Bonnie should have been feeling the effects of the substances by now. Francine asked Bonnie to go with her to the ladies' room. Bonnie stood up and took Francine's hand to break her fall. They walked up the back stairs and Francine stopped several times. "Tell me, darling," Francine mumbled, "aren't you feeling a little horny?" Bonnie turned away, clearly embarrassed by such sensations. "We're friends, honey," Francine said. "You can tell me about it." "I don't know why," Bonnie said. "I've never felt like this before, even with Ted, but he was like that guy from my dream. Only instead of armor, he had this shiny silk suit. God, what a beautiful suit. And instead of a white horse, he had that white Mustang. Bobby would love that car. And he's so sweet. He's only mean to people who deserve it." Francine couldn't understand what Bonnie was talking about. The stupid girl even mistook the substances. Then it dawned on her, and Francine became even angrier. Bonnie was talking about Francine's new man. It's not enough that the little bitch took Ted. It's not enough that she made half the guys downstairs lick their lips at her. She wanted Francine's man too. Well, she won't get it. Francine led Bonnie down the dark hallway towards the staff room. As they approached the room, Francine noticed something strange. Sam had to stand outside to help her just in case. She didn't think he would need help because Bonnie was so trusting and so stupid. But he had to be there. She saw him sit down on the chair again. It didn't look like Sam, but he was sitting where Sam should have been sitting. Perhaps he found someone else for the role so he could participate himself. Francine didn't care. She didn't care. As Francine approached the door, the guy at the door turned away from her, and she had a bad feeling. The guy opened the door and Francine noticed that Bonnie was about to say something to him. But Francine grabbed her to push her into the room. As soon as Bonnie is in the room, the men will grab her and simply take her until she is exhausted. But everything went wrong. When Francine grabbed Bonnie's hand, the guy at the door knocked Francine's hand away, forcing her to let go of Bonnie. He then stepped between the two women with Bonnie outside. He pushed Francine into the room and slammed the door, plunging the room into almost complete darkness. Within seconds, Francine was stripped naked and felt several pairs of hands caressing and touching her. She felt someone's lips on her breasts, and it was so good. She also felt hands on her legs and someone persistently rubbing against hers. She was so excited that I just relaxed to feel more of this touch. The next thing she felt was that someone was having sex with her. It was really good. From outside the room, Bonnie looked at Alex in shock. "What?" she began. Alex put a finger to his lips, calling for silence. He took her hand and led her into another room. There was a computer and one of the bartenders downstairs. "Why?" She started again, but stopped when Alex shook his head. "We need to be very quiet," he said. "The guys aren't under the influence of substances." Suddenly Bonnie's light bulb went on. "Is Francine on something?" she asked. He nodded. He turned on the computer and launched the application. The screen lit up with a strange green light. "Sorry, the picture isn't very clear, but there's very little light in that room. The night vision cameras turn everything green." "How could you do this to her?" Bonnie asked sharply. "I thought you were a good person." Alex just laughed. "I never said I was good," he said. "Your husband and his friends knocked all the kindness out of me 10 years ago. Now I'm kind to those who deserve it. I don't look for trouble, Bonnie, but I don't shy away from it." Bonnie was about to say something else when there was a knock on the door. Alex opened the door. The bartender came in from downstairs. "Tom, tell her," Alex said. Your friend Francine and your husband. That idiot Ted hired me to spike your drinks all night. You were supposed to get a cocktail for sex. I didn't want to do it, but my wife is expecting our first child, and I didn't have a job," he said. "Besides, from what they told me, you were aware. Ted said you were in an open relationship and you wanted to try this kind of sex, but you needed an incentive to relax enough to agree to it." Bonnie's mouth dropped open. "Francine paid you," she said. "I thought she was my friend." Bonnie's face twisted, and she looked ready to cry. "And Ted," she said, now sobbing, "he doesn't love me anymore, does he?" "I'm sorry, Bonnie." "I don't know," Tom said. "Maybe he's just weird about how he expresses his love." "But maybe they've changed their minds," she said, looking up. "I don't feel high at all. I feel fine." Tom shook his head. "Alex paid me more so I wouldn't give you the substances," he said, "and he got me a job. He made me put things that were going to end up in your drinks in Francine's drinks. Francine and your husband served you drinks all night, thinking you had substances in your drinks, but in reality Francine was getting there. They arranged for these guys to have sex with you. Ted was supposed to come here soon with the whole class and open the door to see you having sex. This is before it had to happen in front of all our classmates. I don't know why. I'm sorry, Bonnie. You don't deserve this. You were never like them." He nodded to Alex. "Thanks again for everything, Alex," he said. "My part is done." Alex closed the door behind him and looked at Bonnie again. Bitars were streaming down her face, but she was still beautiful. "Why?" she asked. "I don't know why they want to do this," he said. "I cannot answer this question. If I find out Steve is in on this too, I'll probably kick his ass first thing Monday morning." "No," Bonnie said. "I mean, why did you go to all this trouble to help me?" "Simple," Alex said. "Payback. You tried your best for me. I did the same." "When did I help you?" she asked. "Vortex," he said. She looked at him strangely. "Even in high school, Ted always expected little kids to be afraid of him," Alex said. "I was not. I didn't put up with any of his crap even then, so he decided to make an example of me. Your then 200-pound boyfriend dragged my 96-pound ass into the bathroom and was going to force my face into the toilet and flush it while it was full of shit and piss. The only thing that saved me, even though I struggled mightily, was not the crowd of our classmates who just stood there and watched. At the last moment, before my arms gave out, Bonnie, you stumbled upon this. You told him he could stay there and play with me, or he could take you home. If he didn't want to take you, you would have found someone else. He let me go and followed you," Alex said. "If you hadn't done this, my life would have been even worse. Can you imagine what kids would have called me for the rest of high school if he had done that? They already had a nickname for me. They call me Alexander Grid," Bonnie said, smiling. "I cannot believe this. Alex Anders grew up and—" Bonnie paused and simply shook her head. "Alex, can you get me out of here?" Bonnie asked. "Of course," he said. "But we'd better wait a little longer so we don't get caught in the scene that's about to happen." "Oh yes," she said. Alex looked at her. The tone of her voice changed. There was a limit to this. He opened the door slightly and looked out. In the hallway, a group of people walked from room to room, looking around the classrooms and even the lockers. The woman giving the tour had a key. Alex quickly copied the video from his computer to his portable hard drive. He began to erase files from the computer when Bonnie stopped him. "Can I have a copy too?" she asked. "Of course," Alex said, looking at her strangely. Then he realized why she needed it and nodded. "Can you also record on tape what is about to happen?" she asked. Alex pressed the record button and nodded. By that time, the excursion had already reached the teacher's room. The woman leading the tour opened the unlocked door. Ted walked past her into the room and turned on the light. "No," he shouted theatrically. "Bonnie, how could you do this to me?" The rest of the tour group stared at the mass of copulating bodies. Suddenly, before Alex could stop her, Bonnie ran into the hallway. "How could I do that, Ted?" she shouted. "How could I not fall for your stupid plan with Francine? I almost did it." Ted, even in his drunken state, realized that the plan had failed. Some people in the crowd and in the room noticed that Bonnie was there and fully clothed. "That's not Bonnie," someone said. One of the men in the room repeated the words, "That's not Bonnie. Oh, damn, I slept with Francine. No wonder she was so willing to do it." Another said, "Hey, I thought Ted was okay with this. Why didn't he know it wasn't Bonnie in the room? And why did he get upset when he thought it was her?" Some people on the tour started laughing, while others started taking photos with their phones. Steve looked for something to cover his nakedness. He blushed and then started to get angry. "Close the damn door right now," he shouted. No one moved. The flashes went off again as more photos were taken. Francine was thrown to the floor and screamed, "Don't stop." The drugs were kicking in and she wanted more sex. No one took a step towards her, and the men in the room all rushed to get dressed. As soon as they got dressed, they started running out of the room. The woman leading the tour stood with her mouth open. She was in shock and didn't know what to do. Then something happened that happened almost in slow motion. Ted, realizing that the plan had failed, became even angrier. He had been holding back his anger for the past few days because Francine had convinced him that it was necessary for the plan to succeed. But realizing that they had failed and he could bear part of the responsibility, he exploded. Alex left the room after recording everything on video, but was too late to prevent what happened. Ted yelled at Bonnie, "That would be perfect. I'd get rid of you, you worthless creature. You ruined everything, you stupid bitch." Alex was across the room in an instant. He hit Ted so hard in the mouth that Ted's head snapped back. In his drunken state, Ted wasn't even bothered by this. This only made him angrier. He swung a wild punch at Alex's head, which Alex dodged. Ted growled in anger. Alex stepped forward and stood on both of Ted's legs. He then pushed Ted back forcefully. Ted fell on his back and screamed as loud and high as an opera singer. Ted was still writhing on the floor, begging for someone to help him, when Alex took Bonnie away from chaos. Ted noticed this and became even angrier. He noticed Steve trying to sneak away and called out to him. "Steve, don't let him take Bonnie out of here," Ted shouted. "You still owe me." Steve turned to Alex. "Put it down," he said. "No," Bonnie said. "Alex, get me out of here. You promised." "You heard her," Alex said. "You heard me," Steve said. "This is between Ted and Bonnie. Neither of us should interfere. You have two options. Both options include you letting her go. You can put her down and walk away. That's the smart choice. Or you can put her down and fight me. That's stupid choice. Because I'm smarter and faster than that poor fool Ted. Your tricks won't work on me. You're in good shape, but I'm much bigger than you. I can completely destroy your world." People in the crowd began to retreat. They wanted to watch, but they didn't want to get hurt. Finally, Byron came forward. "I'll hold Bonnie for you while you fight him," he said. A couple of other guys came over too. "You mean while we are fighting him," said one. "You stood alone all night against those idiots. But the thing is, they've been bugging us all since school. I, for one, would like to finally get a piece of their asses." After that, even more people began to approach. Alex laughed. "What's so funny?" Steve asked. "There won't be any fight," Alex said. "Steve claims he's smart, but he's not. He said he could destroy my world, but he can't. Yeah, maybe old Steve could land a few good hits on me. He might even beat me up. But in the end, I would destroy his world." "I know who you are," Steve said menacingly. "My bitch wife, Jessica, sent you here to humiliate me and ruin my evening. She probably wanted you to catch me doing something that she could use against me if I divorced her, right? Alex laughed again. You still don't understand, huh, Steve? He said. I don't even know your wife, but I've been taking care of her and your children for a while now. Steve's eyes narrowed. Steve, I'm Alex Anders, Alex said. People in the crowd began to whisper. Bonnie, who was still being held by Alex, wrapped her arms around his neck and smiled at Ted. She stuck her tongue out at her husband, who tried to painfully approach them. Are you Alexander the Great? Steve asked. You've grown up and aren't a nerd anymore, so what? Steve, remember that long, boring speech you gave the other day? It was bullshit. You're not even close to the most successful person in our class. Get out your phone and call your boss. Call the CEO of your company. Why should I do this? Steve asked, nervous. I don't have his home number. Bonnie, get my iPhone out of my pocket, Alex said. Bonnie took out her phone. Give it to Steve, Alex said. Steve took the phone. Don't play with him. Just hit him, Steve, Ted shouted. Shut up, Ted, Bonnie said. Open my contacts and find your boss, Alex smiled. Steve scrolled through a long list of numbers. Why do you have all my contact numbers? Steve asked. You have my office phone, my cell phone, and even my home phone. Just call your boss, Alex said. Bonnie's starting to get heavy. Steve called his boss. Hello, sir, he said. Sorry to bother you at home, but do you know Alex Anders? Steve's face turned pale. He said. I didn't know. He looked at Alex. He wants to know if everything is okay. Tell him I say hi, Alex said. Tell him he's doing a great job. Steve relayed Alex's words and returned Bonnie's phone. Alex turned and started to walk away. Wait, Steve said. What will happen now? Alex said. Bonnie, can you walk to the car? No, she said, smiling. My face really hurts. It just feels better when you carry me. But you can lay me down for a few minutes to rest your arms. Thank you very much, Alex said. Lowering her to her feet, she immediately grabbed his hand. Steve, you're good at your job, he began. I have nothing against you other than the choice of your friends. You're in a really bad marriage, and I feel sorry for you. Talk to my lawyers when you come in on Monday, and maybe we can find a way to protect some of your assets. That said, in the meantime, I want you to pay for Byron's car to be repaired and painted. I also want you to tell the police that you saw Ted hit Bonnie. You also need to tell them all about Francine's attempt to get you involved in her little scheme for Bonnie. And finally, I need you to do one more thing for me, and you won't like it. What is this? Steve asked nervously. One of the guys working on the loading dock at one of our facilities is engaged in activities that, in my opinion, do not fit the profile of our employees. I want you to fire his drunk ass. He is not entitled to severance pay or any benefits. No problem, Steve said. I can be a bad guy in a heartbeat. Who is it? Alex smiled, picked Bonnie up, and said, Ted. As Alex walked away carrying Bonnie, Francine called out from the living room door. Hey, isn't anyone going to have sex with me? Anyone? As soon as Alex started the car, he looked at Bonnie. She smiled at him, leaning back against the soft leather of the seat. Alex drove out of the parking lot onto the road. Okay, where are we going? He asked. You do not know? She asked, smiling. You knew or planned everything else that happened tonight. I was sure you would have a plan for this too. I guess I didn't think of that, Alex said. My plan ended with you not getting hurt. Well, I can't go home, Bonnie said. So apparently you've got yourself a guest for the night. Tomorrow you can take me to pick up my son. We'll be staying with my parents for a while. Alex headed towards his home in the hills. A few minutes later, Bonnie suddenly sat up straight in the seat and told him to stop the car. Alex hit the brakes and the car slowed down. Bonnie got out of the car and stood at the side of the road. Hurry up, she called. Alex got out of the car and approached her. What's happened? Look, she said, pointing to a large clock on top of one of the buildings. We only have 10 seconds left until midnight and the start of the new year. Ah, I got it, Alex said, looking at her with bewilderment. Bonnie grabbed Alex's head and pulled his mouth to hers. It was as if an electric shock had passed through both of them. Behind them, the church bells rang, announcing midnight and the beginning of 2012. Neither Alex nor Bonnie paid any attention to this. I have a feeling it's going to be a great year, she said. Alex nodded. I had a dream about you. Well, about us, she said. I see the us living happily ever after. Okay, tell me about this dream, Alex said. 3 weeks later, Francine and Ted arrived at a lawyer's office downtown. They argued as they got out of her car. Ted opened the door and waited. Francine got out, went to the trunk, and pulled out the wheelchair. She unfolded it and rolled it to Ted's door, then helped him into it. Both of Ted's legs were still in heavy plaster casts that went up his legs about a foot. They entered the building and passed several armed guards. They were shown to an office on the 10th floor after taking the extremely fast elevator. They sat down at the table and began to wait. As soon as the man who had seated them left the room, they began arguing again. It's all your damn fault, bitch, Ted snapped. As soon as this is over, I'll leave your stupid ass. Where are you going to go? Francine asked. You're out of work, in a wheelchair, and drunk. You could even end up in jail for attacking Bonnie in front of all these people. And who said I wanted you to stay with me? You're a damn loser. I can't see reasons to support your drunk ass. As soon as this is over, I'll kick you out. We need each other now so we can both avoid jail time. But this is a temporary situation. The only good thing about you was the sex. I'm already tired of you, and you haven't touched me for weeks. Remember, never, Ted snapped. Who knows what diseases you've caught? Everyone we know has seen you have sex with 10 guys and still ask for more. No thanks. Just as Francine was about to answer, the door opened and Alex walked into the room, holding Bobby in one arm and holding Bonnie's hand with the other. He looked up, saw Ted, and smiled. Alex and Bonnie sat down. Bobby began to run around the table, holding his favorite typewriter. He alternated between loud vroom sounds and saying, "Mudding." Francine looked at Bonnie and had never seen her so beautiful. Bonnie was wearing a beautiful, obviously new dress and had her hair done again. There was no sign of bruises on her face, and she smiled for the first time in a long time. She looked happy. Francine decided to test the waters and say something. Bonnie, I'm sorry. Alex interrupted her, shaking his head. Ted looked at Bonnie and Alex. He couldn't meet their gaze. I'm in awe, he said quietly. Alex looked at him coldly. Arzers Anonymous. I thought you were a life member, he said. I'm talking to her, not you, Ted snapped. We're still married. Alex just laughed. Depending on how this meeting goes, Alex said, your marriage can be annulled in court. Ted looked at him angrily and asked, how? On what grounds? Alex smiled and said, bigamy. What the hell are you talking about, nerd? Ted barked. I would appreciate it if you didn't use those words in front of Bobby, Alex said. He's at that age where he repeats everything. Why are you trying to tell me what to do in front of my own body? I mean, my own child, Ted snapped. And I'm not an owl-ruffled bigamy. I wouldn't marry Francine for $1 million. Who was talking about Francine? Alex snapped. While your ass is in jail for assault and battery, domestic violence, and all the charges for attempted kidnapping, the plan you and Francine had planned for Bonnie, your life and your sexual orientation will change. I'm convinced you'll have the biggest, the evilest, ugliest, most disgusting mass murderer as an inmate. For a couple of days, you'll be his wife. So think about it. You can't be Bonnie's husband and his wife at the same time. Bigamy. Ted swallowed loudly. Bobby started rolling his car around the table. He rolled the machine over Ted's fingers, and Ted tried to get to his feet. He screamed in pain as soon as one foot touched the floor. "Bobby, honey, stay on this side of the table," Bonnie said. "No," Alex said sharply. "He can play wherever he wants." Ted grunted and removed his hand from that place. Alex covered Bobby's hands over his ears so the boy couldn't hear for a second. "Put your damn hands back on the table," he told Ted. The door opened and a scruffy-looking little man entered the room. He was carrying a stack of loose sheets and his glasses were about to fall off his nose. Francine stood up and shook his hand. The man looked at Alex and Bonnie. "You just graduated from law school, didn't you?" Alex asked, laughing. The man nodded. "Don't worry," Alex said in a friendly voice. "You can tear up all these papers or save them for your records. You'll be back in your office in about half an hour, having sent the bill to these two." "Well," said the lawyer, "I don't know. This case could drag on for a long time. You have a lot of accusations and evidence against my clients, but we also have something that we can use against you. You two obviously care about each other. Who knows how long this lasts, and I'm sure you would probably like to live together or get married. The only way for that to happen is if my client divorces her. What about his rights to see the child?" "Well, I was trying to be nice," Alex said. The door opened and an elegantly dressed man entered the room. He was followed by an elegantly dressed woman, followed by two more elegantly dressed men and another woman. Finally, three older men and another woman came in, carrying a briefcase and began setting up the recording equipment. "Who are all these people?" Francine asked. "My legal team," Alex said. "You have 9 lawyers?" Francine asked. Ted just sat at the table with his mouth open. One of the men waved to Ted's lawyer. "It's not the whole team," Alex said. "But since this is only a preliminary meeting." "Do you know that guy?" Francine asked her lawyer, who swallowed and nodded. He was one of my professors in law school," the young lawyer said. "Before we start, why don't all the lawyers come outside and get some coffee?" Alex said. "It's going to be a long, hot meeting. Maybe the 4 of us can solve something to alleviate the situation. Miss Stevens, could you take Bobby with you? Perhaps the 4 of us can come up with something to make this easier. Miss Stevens, could you take Bobby with you? Some things we say may not be for his ears." Both Francine and Ted nodded their heads quickly. When all the lawyers left, Alex looked at Francine and Ted. "I'm going to offer you a one-time deal that will keep you both out of jail, but only if you're completely honest with me. If you lie, we'll get the lawyers back and go to court. I will also use every dollar I earn for the rest of my life to make your life miserable." Francine and Ted nodded. "First of all, why did you come up with this ridiculous scheme? I'm not going to ask you what you did. I don't want you to say anything that might incriminate you. I just want to know why you tried it. What did you want to get?" "I wanted out of the marriage," Ted said. "I don't hate Bonnie, but I just don't like her. Our life together is terrible, and I feel trapped. I don't want to be a father. She always whines about everything I do. She doesn't like adventure when necessary. Comes to sex, and she's just not fun to be around. All I wanted out of this was a divorce. I wanted her to be put in a position where I wouldn't have to pay child support or alimony. I was going to let her have the house because I was going to move in with Francine. We had been having sex with each other for a while now, and I just thought things would be better with her until I found out what a bitch she was." Ted glared at Francine. "I wanted revenge," Francine said. "I'm tired of being the other woman and the other girl. As long as I've known Bonnie, no one has noticed me. I've always been Bonnie's friend. The guys tried to get to know me so I could introduce them to Bonnie. Every time I'm compared to her, I lose. It doesn't make any sense. My breasts are bigger than hers. My ass is rounder than hers. I'm much better in bed," asked Ted. "But that's all I heard. It's Bonnie, Bonnie, Bonnie. I'm fucking sick of this. I thought that if I took Ted away from her and made everyone think she was just a big, available girl. I would get back at her. But it backfired, and now I have a lot of problems. And even in, we can tell how it's going to go. After all my plans and scheming, she still wins. I'm so nervous about losing my money and having to go to jail that my hair is falling out. Everyone in town is thinking, I am easily accessible. They even posted cell phone videos of me all over the internet. And to make matters worse, Bonnie ends up with a boyfriend who is 1,000 times better than the one she had. I can't win. All I want is for this to end and try to get my life back to normal. Damn it, Ted, you can have him, although the way you look at you too, you don't want him anymore. Okay, Alex said. It was fair. We can all win here. We don't need to drag this out through court. Ted, Bonnie will agree to give you the divorce you want. No alimony, no alimony. We've already completed the paperwork. All you have to do is sign them, and in 60 days you will be free of her. You can even keep the house you live in. Ted's mouth fell open. Ted, if you agree to relinquish your parental rights to Bobby, we will also drop the domestic violence and assault charges. You can leave here a free man. Give me those papers, Ted said. He scribbled his name on several documents and leaned back in his chair, smiling. What about me? Asked Francine. Live long and prosper, Alex chuckled. Besides having sex with a married man and organizing fun for yourself, you haven't really done anything other than lie and be conniving to your best friend. I think in a few years you'll realize you've lost a really good friend and all this is in vain. Bonnie stood up. I have something for you, she said, walking up to Francine, who was smiling and happy at the news that she wouldn't have to go to jail. Her whole life was returning to normal. If she went to jail, she would stop receiving child support from her ex. She turned to look at Bonnie. Bonnie simply smiled and punched her in the mouth. Bitch, she said, rubbing her arm. The only sound in the room was Ted's laughter. She gave you a good time, he laughed. Francine stood up and walked towards the door. Hey, where are you going? Ted shouted. I'm going home to ice my lip, Francine said. She gave me a good time, remember? And I? Ted asked. You can roll your drunken, crippled man home by yourself. We're done, Francine grinned. We're not going to jail, so I don't need you anymore. See you later. She then left the office. Ted started screaming for her to come back. Bonnie took Alex's hand and they walked out of the office, smiling. It was a new year and a new beginning for both of them. Bonnie now had someone who would love her the way she deserved, and Alex had two people to share his life with. They picked up Bobby on the way out. Bobby, we're leaving, Bonnie smiled. We're going to the car. Mudang, Bobby said. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.